Picture this. You've sat down to finally watch what is likely to be the mediocre finale of Disney's Star Wars trilogy, The Rise of Skywalker. As a hopeful person and lover of Ian McDiarmid's Palpatine, you think things might pull back around. You sit through the title crawl, hoping, no praying that it'll all be worth it, only to have these words escape from Oscar Isaac's pretty little mouth.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Your head begins to fill with questions that will remain unanswered unless you fork out the money for novelisation. Dominic Monaghan makes an attempt to answer the questions created by Palp being back, but dark science, cloning, secrets only the Sith knew isn't good enough. Now, people can blame this decision on a lack of proper explanation, lore, and need for Palpatine's return. All of these being correct, mind you. However, I think that in reality, we can sum up these problems with one word, and that word is somehow. Somehow doesn't seem that problematic, right? I mean, sit down with your friends and try and explain to them how the good guys won in any Marvel film without using the word. We need this word to help explain things. It can even be easing. Somehow things will all work out. It is in a writing capacity, though, that somehow becomes a problem. Through this lens, we see that the word lacks legitimacy and is an admittance of your flawed plot before you've even given readers, viewers, and general audiences a chance at it. People, as in audiences, are now able to access more critical resources than ever, that poke holes in what used to just be accepted as fact. So by saying somehow Palpatine is alive, you're giving viewers a blank to fill in. By using somehow, you are asking the question of how did this happen without giving a solid answer and leaving it to your viewer to figure it out. This is the main crutch of somehow. While weaker writers would see it as a free pass to throw whatever they want at their audience, they fail to see how it hinders more than it helps. Star Wars is not the only example of the use of somehow either. Take The Legend of Korra, for example. In Season 3, we see Korra return the air nomads into the world through some spirit magic. She and Jinora, mainly Jinora, used to stop the end of the world. After events within Season 2, which are questionable plot and lore-wise in their own right, the air nomads nonetheless return into the world. By no means is this idea alone bad. Tenzin's reaction to seeing his people return is something that is incredibly touching, especially to any fan of The Last Airbender. Where the point is crippled is through the use of somehow. In the final scene of Season 3, we see the airbenders for the first time in over 100 years accept a new airbending master with the rituals and traditions that require multiple airbenders working in harmony. The animation and soundtrack sum up to nothing less than perfect in this scene. Though my mind was drawn away from the beauty, and not just by Korra being a general downer on the vibe, in Tenzin's pride he lets loose that
somehow the world began anew for us.
Again, this seems like nitpicking, but the word serves to only cause questions, answers to which we're never given. It almost seems, as somehow creates a worse response within its existence rather than without, that it is purposeful laziness. Forgetting an aspect of your plot, well, yeah, that's lazy, but we're all lazy and we all make these mistakes. Somehow acknowledges the problems within your believability, the problems within your plot, but then chooses to ignore them. Somehow represents a lack of confidence in a writer's product. It is needless, a filler word only serving to hinder the believability. For instance, let's now turn to the series predating Korra, The Last Airbender, for an example of a plot that can succeed without somehow and with brazen confidence. Most, including myself, would find it difficult to criticise anything except maybe the Great Divide within The Last Airbender, but what was at least debated at the time of release was Aang's ability to take away Ozai's bending, whether it was a Deus Ex Machina or not. My opinion? It doesn't matter. The show and its writers dealt with it as if it wasn't a problem. They had the confidence to say Aang is now the Avatar and has the ability to work out his own solution to problems. It's not even a bad idea, as the alternative would be forcing a 12-year-old to kill a man on kids' TV. Even in animation, that's rough. Whereas with Korra, a show that seeks to accomplish things bigger and better than Avatar: The Last Airbender, we see next to none of this confidence. Somehow is taking us away from the beautiful soundtracks and meaningful moments and creating a series of questions that the show wished it could answer. Aang's lion turtle training is a much shakier answer for why he can take bending away than most plot points in Korra. Yet a shaky plot put forward with confidence is received much better than a strong plot without said confidence. This is because the viewer is forced to come up with their own complaint, if they even have one, with a plot that doesn't show its holes. The word somehow invites questions and complaints, because it betrays the writer's uncertainty with their own solution. It asks the viewer to satisfy themselves, while also showing the multitude of holes within the plot. From the examples we've looked at then, it becomes clear to see that somehow isn't the source of all these problems, and you can't explain it away by removing the word. But what we need to look at when we look at somehow is, through a writing lens, how is it an excuse? How is it a problem for legitimacy, believability in your plots? And that's what you really need to create. By asking yourself the question of why do things happen within your plots, you're going to develop them. You're going to lose the use of the word somehow, because while in writing or structuring it's fine to use at the beginning, you need to make sure that you have the explanation, even if you don't use it. Somehow is needless, as I've said, and hopefully by looking at these examples you can see how, without it, even with a shakier plot, you can make just as good of a piece of work. Thank you so much for watching, listening, generally understanding, whatever you were doing really. Like this if you liked it, I guess, the usual stuff, and I hope to see you again soon.